when, like you said, you have the high-quality messengers, you have world leaders coming out, spilling the goods, telling you what you always wanted to hear, which is this is real. We need to tell the public about this. We need to open the floodgates. And the media is absolutely ignoring it. They're not allowed to touch it. It's not because they don't think it's interesting. They're not allowed. So what could be the reason? Well, it's obvious that the Brookings Institute and their recommendations about keeping this sort of thing secret, deny, 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 is still in place. But why? And part of the reason my gut is telling me, and I got to trust my gut, is because they still don't really know very much. So what I'm trying to say is I'm still not convinced that there are these Swerglow discussed multi-level projects where the Greys are working with the humans downstairs in the basement, and they're cooking up these Fruit Loop salad genetic experimentation pods, and they're jumping into Stargates and going over to Mars for a couple hours and having drinks. I just don't know if I buy that. What I would buy, and what's easier for me to digest, which is what I was talking to this gentleman last night about, a buddy of mine, is that I think why they want to keep it such a secret is because it does two things. The fact that we don't know very much, we don't know who's coming in, invading our airspace, doing what they want, when they want, things that we don't want to hear about that our government has seen firsthand, whether it be human mutilation, cattle mutilation, alien abduction, which, by the way, sometimes these people don't come back. We haven't discussed that too much because we can't get them to interview with us, obviously, because they're no longer here. Okay? If they don't know, that creates a lot of fear, the fear of the unknown, right? Not having control over your own airspace, okay? It makes us look small. It makes us look frail. It makes us look penetrable, okay? I think more in my gut that is the core of the secrecy, which is you give up a lot of power if you admit that we have finally figured out a long time ago that we were obviously incredibly small on the totem pole because there are entities that can do magical things and obviously can travel interdimensionally. They can warp space. They can come and go as they please. They have things going on underneath the water we don't even know about. When we've tried to communicate or tried to stop, we haven't been successful or even remotely successful. So at the end of the day, all we can do is try to monitor this stuff and keep it under wraps. What do you think about that?
You know what, Jesse, the more and more I get into this, that I completely agree with you. Everybody in ufology has always kind of been, well, they're holding back free energy from us. That's the number one reason. It's the oil companies that don't want free energy to be known, because if we know about ETs, we want to know how they get here. The answer is free energy, and so BP and all the big oil companies and the government are covering up for that reason. But the more you look into it, there is so much that is not known. Even our current president is not on a need-to-know basis regarding this. And, like you said, we don't have a grasp on it. It would be scary, because think of the floodgate of questions that would come out into mainstream media. How did they get here? What are they like? Are they good? Are they bad? How is Fox News, a regular news reporter on Fox, or any other media outlet going to answer those questions? What can even the president say that is a sound answer? He doesn't have one. He doesn't know. And, we can get some of the experts on, but they're so few and far between, and they're so high up in the system, they're going to be hard to access, and they only know what they know in their department. They're so compartmentalized that we're just, you're right, Jesse. Our government and our powers that be that are in charge of this wouldn't have the answers, not even close to the answers of the big picture that the people would demand.
Yeah, and the only part that I disagree with about what you just said is that I don't think free energy has anything to do with extraterrestrials. I think it's if you look at the Nikola Tesla movie that we're going to be screening this week, these are concepts that were created by Earthlings, people of this planet, where they had figured out ways to make things cheaper and more accessible for the masses, cleaner, safer. And because of corporate greed, they decided to get rid of these people and suppress their technologies. I don't see that having anything to do. I'm not going to give the credit to extraterrestrials for that. And besides that, I think if that was the case and they were benevolent beings, they wouldn't stand for it. They would actually intervene. I don't believe in this Star Trekian non-interference clause, which so many people just jump on the bandwagon and go, oh, well, that's the reason. It's a science fiction show. It's a science fiction show. So if Richard Hoagland comes on and says, well, that's where they get, Star Trek is right on the money and everything they're talking about is true. I mean, come on, Gene Roddenberry, the guy wrote a science fiction. Come on, Richard. Again, we talk about accountability. Here's the guy, and I'm not bashing him, but again, here's the guy that said what? There was going to be a methane explosion that was going to create a tsunami and kill how many people, Sandy? What, a month ago?
Yes, correct.
Okay, now that's gone, right? That didn't happen, correct? Am I right?
Correct.
I didn't notice that happening in the news. Where is the accountability? Where is Richard to explain why that didn't happen and why he yelled fire in the theater? That bothers me. We've talked about this time and time again. I'm sick of that. We are not here to scare people. We can question. There's plenty of real conspiracy going on, friends. We don't need to create strange ones. The BP oil spill is an absolute conspiracy because it's still there, and they've done this marketing campaign to make it seem as though it's all said and done. Sandy, tell us about what's going on with BP this week that you've learned, if anything.
Sure, Jesse. There's a lot going. Well, in the media, I just last week I was at the laundromat and I picked up a New York Times, and on the front page of New York Times it says, 75% of oil has been dispersed, or is gone. It cannot be found. They're pulling up the booms. They have sent the skimmers away. There's nothing to be worried about. It has been eaten up by natural organisms and has just naturally dissolved. This is what is in the mainstream media, the thing that BP has capped this well, and there is no oil. Now this, you guys, think about how long it took Exxon Valdez to clean up their spill. That was a week-long operation, or how long the oil actually went on for. We're talking 100 days of a much larger oil volcano occurring. Where did it go? What happened? Is it there? Is it not there? Now, what I've discovered, and there's, if you guys want to find out more information, there's two websites that you can go to that are fantastic on covering the truth about the BP spill, and one of them is called the intelhub.com. They're great, and then there is also a group, hold on, let me find them, projectgulfimpact.org that has been covering this, and they are actually down in the Gulf. They've got scientists and doctors down there talking to the community, talking to the people. What happened to the oil, Jesse? It's been dispersed by Corexit. They poured 1.8 million gallons of Corexit over the oil. This is why no oil can be found, because dispersant did its job. The dispersant, we've mentioned this before, it's more toxic than the oil itself. It never should have been used. Even at one point, the EPA told them to stop spraying the Corexit, but they continued to spray up until very recently, and people are very, very sick. There are pictures I have here of men and women and children with huge, huge lesions, sores, open sores on their bodies. There's a study I thought from Columbia University that 40% of the people in the Gulf have either respiratory problems or skin lesions. And this is because of Corexit, guys. This is what that's what it does. It breaks down lipids. That's how it breaks down the oil. Your body, your skin, your number one defense system against everything, everything in the environment is made of lipids. So if Corexit can break down crude oil, just imagine what it can do to your body, let alone all the organisms and the sea life that are out there.
It's pretty sickening. And from what I've heard, and I listen to mainstream talk radio most of the day, sometimes when I can stomach it, both left and right, because I want to see what people are talking about. But today it was progressive left. I believe it was POJ out here, WPOJ. It's the only progressive station in Portland. It was maybe the Tom Hartman show. Seems like a pretty decent guy out of Seattle. And he had some people from down there, and they were basically saying the same thing, which is they're giving hats off for BP for doing this terrific marketing campaign. But is it so terrific when it's a lot easier to do when you have the government in your back pocket? I mean, obviously they're working together on this. It's ridiculous. And then they spoke to some people, like you said, down in the Gulf, and they said there's more oil showing up in the bay this week than ever. So who's telling the truth here? Who would you rather believe, the people there on the ground or these schmucks who are doing this marketing campaign? And they did a great job. They get these local guys and they get them up there to toot how, BP's in it for the long haul. They got rid of all the British guys, so you don't have anybody sounding too hidey-tidy-whitey, even though they're cashing in like fat cats. BP is totally cashing in. They're doing fine. Any other company would have been bankrupt 100 times over. They talked about criminal action when this first started. Where's that? It's gone. It's gone. Nobody's interested in it. So the two stories that really bothered me, go ahead.
Oh, no, I just wanted to mention if you knew about Matt Simmons, died yesterday. He was a whistleblower in the situation. He was an insider. He was the founder of Ocean Energy Institute and was kind of a BP government insider. And he's actually been all over the mainstream media talking about what complete. Sure.
Hold on. Matt Simmons was the guy. Correct me if I'm wrong. That claimed, and this has still been, nobody knows. Unknown right now. But he was the one that came on CSNBC. I saw the interview where he said there was a second hole releasing oil that they were covering up because there was no way in hell that one hole was releasing that much oil that was going into the Gulf. So he claimed there was a second crash site, if you will, and basically that they were covering that up. I did not know he passed away. What happened, Sandy?
Well, apparently he died there's two stories. One is he died in his hot tub, and the other story is that he had a heart attack. Yes, he is 67 years old, so these things are very probable at that time. He was scheduled to talk to Mel Fabregas and James Fox this week. I saw on Facebook that James Fox had sent Mel Fabregas this story on my Facebook saying, "Did you know Matt Simmons died last night?" It's gotten a little bit of stuff on YouTube. There's some videos, people thinking this is, some type of dirty underground, situation where he's actually been killed by the CIA. Of course, we're never going to know the truth about that. But you're right, Jesse. Matt Simmons did come out and say that the real oil spill is 5 to 10 miles away. He also said, and he's an oil expert apparently, he said that what you're seeing on these video feeds is not the actual real spill. This is just another, cap that they have, and where they've got all these robots capping it, making them stop oil. He came out on mass media even last week saying that is not where it's coming from. So he's quite a whistleblower. He really made BP look bad, and he was tied to BP before this. So he definitely has some relationships going on with BP and the government, and unfortunately he won't be around any longer to keep telling us what he knows.
Well, the only people, honestly, that I trust at this point are the rogue people. The people that we know personally, like James Fox, the ultimate New Guard member, in my opinion, the guy leading the charge he's the leader that I've hoped for years. He was the guy that I would sit around sometimes with friends and say, I wish there was a guy that had the skill set, had the knowledge, but also had a head on his shoulders and a demeanor where people might take him as a regular person, not some crackpot, who had the balls to go out there in the field and do this. He's the ultimate doer, and thank God he's out there. I love the guy. Don't you love James Fox?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it was because of James Fox posting this in regards to Matt Simmons that it made me think, what did Matt Simmons say? And I went back